A huge day for LSU football along the offensive line in the transfer portal. We're here to tell you about it. Purple and Gold Podcast, Friday, January 16th. What's up, everybody? It's the weekend, and if you are an LSU Tiger football fan, you've got to be feeling pretty darn good right now about where LSU's roster for the 2026 season, the way it's looking. So yesterday, we talked about the offensive line room, and we talked about how that was the one spot on the team that they hadn't really added impact players. And we went through the list of the 5 returnees, the 2 freshmen that they were bringing in, and the 4 players that they had brought in from the transfer portal. And we talked about the need for potential starters. Well, last night and today, Lane Kiffin, and Billy Glasscock and Eric Wolford, the offensive line coach, they have rectified that problem in a major way. So late last night, LSU got a commitment from Jamard Jones. He played his freshman year this past year at Nichols. He is from my alma mater, Rummel High School in Metairie, Louisiana, and he is a development piece. So you say, okay, now they've added a 5th guy, but again, he's in the same vein as a couple of these other smaller school guys, and what are we doing? What's going to happen here on the offensive line? It's probably the question that has been asked the most since Sam Leavitt and Husan Longstreet have signed. Well, today, LSU nabbed 3 more commitments, and I believe all 3 of these players will start LSU's opening game against Clemson. So first, they added Sean Tompkins from Baylor. We talked a little bit about him yesterday. This is a guy that played 440 snaps between right and left tackle at Baylor. He's a 3-year player. He didn't grade out exceptionally well in the PFF grades, but he's a big-time major conference group of 4 player, and he has starting experience at left tackle. And then LSU added Devin Harper, who we talked about a lot from Ole Miss. He's from Shreveport, Calvary Baptist, was committed to LSU last year, then at the last minute flipped to Ole Miss, played some for Ole Miss, was expected to be their heir apparent either at left tackle or right tackle in 2026. He can play guard. He can play tackle. Again, another guy you would expect to start. And then they added Eloy Ba from Maryland, and he has started the last 23 games, the last 2 seasons from Maryland. He originally committed to Georgia and played for Georgia out of high school. This is a true guard, and this is a guy who will be one of LSU's 2 starting guards. So now you look at LSU's offensive line just on the numbers, and you say, okay, they've added 8 guys now out of the portal. They had 5 returnees and 2 freshmen. So now they're up to 15 offensive linemen. That's more in line, I think, from a roster perspective with where you want to be. And then you look at it and you say, okay, Braylon Moore's at center. Weston Davis is potentially at right tackle. Sean Tompkins is at left tackle. Aluba is at one guard. Maybe Devin Harper is at the other guard. So now Darren Stray, who they got from Kentucky as a redshirt freshman, and Jacoby Jones, the junior college guy, and William Satterwhite, who was a backup center/guard from Tennessee, and Bryson Martinez and Ryan Moret, the 2 freshmen. Now all of these guys are depth pieces, and you have a guy like Solomon Thomas, who was a 5-star last year, who redshirted last year on LSU's team, who could compete for a starting job. So now you've got probably 8 to 9 to 10 guys to compete for the 2 deep, which is where you want to be. And I think now you've got between Baugh, Harper, Tompkins, and Braylon Moore, I think 4 solid starters. And I think when you look at the fact that Weston Davis was one of only 2 guys that LSU's new coaching staff kept. He was a top 50 player. He didn't play that much football in high school because he was a basketball player, 6'7". I know he took his lumps at right tackle last year. I think LSU's coaching staff prioritized him because I think they feel like they can do better work with him in a better scheme with better coaching. So I love where LSU's offensive line is now. They may add another guy or two. Look, the portal closes tonight at midnight, but there are thousands of kids in the portal. LSU may unearth another lineman or two. As far as Jordan Seaton, who's the big 5-star offensive lineman who's going to command a multi-million-dollar salary for this year, he visited Mississippi State, and now he's on his way to visit Miami. I do not expect LSU to be a player there. I think they signed and got commitments from these three guys today. Probably a quantity over quality. Not that these guys aren't quality, but in terms of Jordan Seaton being an elite left tackle, I wouldn't rule anything out. You never can rule anything out with Lane. You never can rule anything out with the way LSU's boosters are doling out cash right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens if and when he leaves Miami without committing. In terms of the rest of the transfer portal, I do expect LSU to land Ole Miss linebacker TJ Daugherty, and I do expect them to land Prince Will Amunamalian, who went in the portal last night from Ole Miss. He's the edge player. There's some contractual stuff to iron out there. He may have re-signed with Ole Miss. It seems like he did prior to entering the transfer portal. There may be some penalty. I've read something to the tune of $300,000, but all of the indications are that that contract won't hold up. And even if it did, LSU will buy him out of that. So I expect those two defensive players from Ole Miss probably over the weekend at some point or early part of next week to wind up in LSU's class. So LSU's up to 33, 34, whatever it is out of the transfer portal. The other big news today is they added Fahim Delane, safety from Ohio State, played his freshman year at Ohio State. He's Mansour Delane's younger brother. Fahim Delane played quite a bit on Ohio State's playoff team. The early word is that LSU potentially views Deshaun Spears as possibly playing the star position. That's the position that Harold Perkins played. So he would vacate the safety position. That would leave you with Tamarcus Cooley, Ty Benefield, who they signed out of the portal from Boise, and Fahim Delane. Delane has 3 years of eligibility left. We know the success his brother had last year here. A unanimous All-American, should have won the Thorpe Award. Again, another premium player added in the transfer portal by Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock and the rest of this staff. I have been hesitant to come on this channel and really praise LSU's team for 2026 because a lot of people did that in 2025, and we know that they cratered to a 7-5 record. I will just say this, though. Lane Kiffin has done more recruiting in the last 4 weeks than Brian Kelly did in 4 years. And Lane Kiffin is a villain to the rest of college football right now. He's an extreme villain to Ole Miss. There's plenty of vitriol out there online. He is a hero in this room. He is a hero in this state, in the state of Louisiana, and he will be a hero to LSU fans everywhere. Lane Kiffin is not going to rest until this roster is in a position to win. And I will tell you all this now as we head into the weekend. Now I will say it. Crack open a beverage, gang. This roster is pretty much where it needs to be. Once they add Daugherty, once they add Prince Will, they've pretty much solidified this thing in just about every area. And like I said, there are still thousands of players in the portal for Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock to unearth over these next few weeks. That'll do it for today. That'll do it for the weekend. LSU and Missouri tomorrow at 2:30 in basketball. Keep in mind that is it's Alumni Day. They're honoring the 40th anniversary of LSU's Final Four team in 1986. If you can make it out to the PMAC, please do so and support the Tigers. As always, be good to one another. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe, be healthy, and always, always, always go Tigers.